Hello everybody, and welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. One of the most interesting facts about the music industry is its often close relationship with men of the underworld. Musicians have always drawn inspiration from real-life hard men to either write their songs or model their own public personas after. Not to mention that lots of music has been sponsored by blood money. In reality, very few artists are truly bad men, but in some cases, you get a few who have combined being a once-in-a-lifetime talent with being bad to the bone, like the subject of today's video in the enigmatic Ranking Dread. In my humble opinion, very few toasters in the history of dancehall have matched his level of raw talent and ghetto fabulous swagger. I personally believe that his flow and style were borrowed by many eventual greats, including Ika Mouse, but that's just me thinking out loud. Endowed with an incredible nasal voice, unrivaled lyricism, and flawless timing, he would have gone on to become celebrated as one of the greatest in dancehall. But unfortunately, he would succumb to the allure of the streets and descended into a life of crime and mayhem. From an ultra-violent start as a political thug during the terrible crisis in Jamaica in the 1970s, he graduated to becoming one of the leaders of the most feared international criminal organizations by the 1980s. And became infamous in the underworld as the most dangerous man in Britain, while still known to the public as a popular DJ. This video is one I've been meaning to do for a while now, so without further ado, let's take a look at the life and times of Ranking Dread. This mysterious icon's origins are not 100% certain, but we are sure of one thing: he was born Winston Brown in a small village in the parish of Trelawney in Jamaica in 1955. Like many families in Jamaica's rural areas, his folks moved to the capital of Kingston in the wake of the island's independence in 1962. He would grow up in the tough and turbulent ghettos of Wilton Gardens, popularly called Rima, and came of age in the mean streets of Tivoli Gardens. That neighborhood in West Kingston was the stronghold of Jamaica's Labour Party, popularly known as the JLP, and was controlled by a crew called the Phoenix Gang, which served as the JLP's street muscle. This gang was led by a guy called Claudie Massop, the original Don Gorgon of Tivoli Gardens. And young Winston Brown would fall under Massop's influence and became a member of the Phoenix Gang by the time he got into his teens. But the musical energy that was exploding out of Jamaica would catch young Winston's attention, and he began to do his thing as a DJ on local sound systems. He eventually began to make a name for himself as a red-hot DJ with the stage name of Ranking Dread, with an outfit called the Ras Symbolic Sound System in Kingston by the early 1970s. But as that decade progressed, Jamaica descended into a brutal political war between the PNP political party and the JLP, and the Phoenix Gang would wage savage street battles with the PNP's own muscle. That urban conflict claimed almost 2,000 lives, and Ranking Dread would play his deadly part in that crisis, and was declared wanted by the police in connection with over 30 murders. Claudie Massop and other gang leaders were arrested in 1977. Ranking Dread was also arrested in connection with the murder of a policeman, but he escaped and fled Jamaica before traveling to the United Kingdom, where he became known by different names, but became known mostly by the alias of Errol Codling. His super toasting skills would land him a role as a DJ with the popular Lloyd Coxon's sound system in London, and he became a sensation on the London reggae scene and released his debut album Girls Fiesta in 1978 that was produced by reggae artist and producer Linval Thompson, and would follow it up with 1977's Kunta Kinte Roots and 1980's Lots of Lovin' that was produced by Sugar Minott and boasted of a phenomenal title track. But in 1981, he released his biggest hit in the single Fatty Boom Boom, which was an underground smash hit that breached the top 40 of the UK singles charts. Ranking Dread was by no means the biggest reggae artist in England back then, but he was certainly in the conversation among sound system icons and recording artists of note. But unfortunately, he would become seduced by his past and jumped right back into his old dangerous ways. By the 1980s, Claudie Massop was dead, and his crew, the Phoenix Gang, had a new leader called Lester Lloyd Coke and was now known as the Shower Posse. But unlike the Phoenix Gang that was known mostly for political thuggery, the Shower Posse was heavily focused on narcotics and could boast of an international spread. Many of the gunmen and enforcers who are taking part in the savage political wars of the 70s have fled to various countries like the UK, Canada and the US, places that they would form local syndicates. Ranking Dread would help to organize and build the UK branch, popularly called the Yardies. In fact, he not only established local branches in Britain, but also founded the New York branch in 1983 and was even deported from the US for cannabis possession, but found his way back to the UK. Ranking Dread would oversee the brutal rise of the Yardies in Britain that became that country's most lethal criminal gang. He would in those times maintain a public image as a musician, as he's seen doing here in the 1982 edition of the UK Reggae Awards. But as his criminal empire expanded, he would give less and eventually no attention to his musical career. His notoriety would spread like wildfire, as he and his flamboyant crew would wreak havoc all over the country, taking part in murders, assaults, and of course, their drug trade. By 1988, he was known and labelled the most dangerous man in the UK and even became the focus of an investigative TV series called The Cook Report. During a raid on an illegal drinking house, Ranking Dread was found and arrested with 20 other suspects for possession of narcotics. After even more trouble with the law, the UK authorities had had simply enough of him and deported him to Jamaica in November 1988. But he wouldn't spend much time back home, as he made his way to Canada in 1989 and settled in Toronto, a city with a vibrant population of the Shower Posse. But he wasted no time in going back to his old ways, and by July that year, he was convicted for slashing his girlfriend's face with a knife and assaulting a police officer. He claimed political asylum in Canada and fought very hard to avoid getting deported and managed to stay back for 3 more years. But in 1992, the Canadian authorities deported him to Jamaica. It's not very clear whether he was sent to prison by Jamaican authorities for new crimes or if his past sins had caught up with him. But he was sent to the General Penitentiary in Kingston soon after arriving. He was by then heavily addicted to crack cocaine and was said to be extremely volatile and violent. And it's been said that by then he was already marked for elimination. Different schools of thought swear he was marked for death by rival gangs, while others say the authorities were after him. But whatever the case, Ranking Dread passed away behind bars in 1996 at the age of 41 from poisoning. The man's story is filled with so much mystery and myths, and it's been heavily argued by many people that he didn't die in prison, but actually escaped and succumbed later to a drug overdose while laying low in Kingston, while a very small school of thought still claims that Ranking Dread still lives in a foreign country. But whatever the case, the story of Ranking Dread has gone down as a criminal and dangerous man. A true shame, because Ranking Dread was a supremely talented individual who, in my opinion, would have gone on to become known as a legend in the game. But instead, he will forever be remembered as a menace to society and a monstrous gangster who was for a time the most dangerous man in Britain. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.